Hey, I'm Coach T. It's been 2 weeks since I did a video update. Not dead, just very busy with family stuff. We had people in from out of town, then we went out of town, so it's just been a season of very busy family stuff. However, still making progress. So with this video diary, I'm just tracking my progress learning C Sharp and more recently learning Unity over the course of a year. We're coming up on the end of that year. I think this is video diary. It's week 41, I think. But we're getting there. So I'm trucking away. I learned a lot over the last 2 weeks of study. I did a couple different learning process projects. First thing is I wrapped up the project that I was working on before, which was the twin stick shooter. I got to a point where I had all of the systems in that I wanted to for the minimum viable product at the end, but there was tech debt that built up, and something about the Primeagen had a video a couple months ago, maybe. He read an article, but basically he proposed that like when you hit about 5,000 lines of code in a project, that's where you start to feel tech debt. And I was starting to feel tech debt. The way that I had structured my inventories for the player and the other characters was very different. The behavior trees or the state machines for the NPCs had issues, and I was kind of patching it as I went along. And what I decided to do was rebuild that project, but from the ground up, like literally going down to the ground, and then implementing everything from the course that I also just finished, which was the design patterns course. So I've put about a week and change into this project. I'll show it off in a minute. Still a twin stick shooter, but the ideas and the structure are significantly refined. So one thing that two directives have really driven every decision that I've made. The first is that I want to make sure that, oops, where is my, I want to be able to pull this up. Yeah, so I want to be able to make sure that I'm decoupling things. So I'm following single responsibility principle, and I'm also following good modular encapsulated design. So that means I'm really learning to utilize interfaces and intermediaries wherever I can. I'm also using properties as what is that called? Data bindings. Yes. So I'm using encapsulation, data bindings, interfaces, basically wherever I can, and I'm utilizing scriptable objects more than I did in the last one as well. And then the second directive is that things that have state should be utilizing a state machine if it's complex enough. So I've found a number of places where utilizing a state machine works over just having a class or a series of interconnected classes with dependencies that govern it. So what that means practically is things like the game mission structure overall is technically a state machine. It's got a single state that it can enter at the moment, but that state eventually will determine the player's primary objectives, secondary objectives, next objectives. The player's locomotion now is completely state based. It's a little bit of a hybrid between centralized and state managed state machine, but it is a finite state machine. It's a significant improvement over the last one. And I'll show off some of the new things that it can do. The guns all have states. They have a reloading state, they have a shooting state, they have a dormant state, they have an idle state. When they're dormant, you can pick them up. You can't pick them up otherwise. When they're reloading, depending on the reloading script, they may be interrupted. When they are firing, depending on the nature of the attacking, which is inside of the attack state abstract state that I wrote out, they may inherit the fundamentals, but I can change the actual behaviors of how the weapons shoot, down to how does it handle hit effects, how does it handle the nature of shooting. I have one gun that shoots with a particle effect, and I've got other guns that shoot with projectiles, and I've got some guns that shoot with ray casting. It gives me the opportunity to explore some of those different avenues and then plug and play. The big thing that I've really been trying to get my head around for the last couple of days is composition. So understanding when and where I need to instance a prefab, for example, in order to have an actionable game object once the program is running. That's an area where I keep just running headfirst into the wall, where I expect that it'll work, but really I'm working with a prefab, not instance, but the prefab itself, and Unity sometimes gives me a hard time. So all that said, I've done a lot of coding over the last 2 weeks, but it's been in like little micro increments, tackling one little project at a time. And while that's been instructive and fun, I just didn't have time to do a video diary. So I'll flip over to this. So here is my still calling it Black Dogs, although I think I might change the name at some point. My timeline is to get all of this done in prototype stage, not polished, but structurally architected by the end of May. So I brought my timeline in closer because a lot of it I was able to do much faster than originally anticipated. But the idea here is it's a rebuild from the ground up, more emphasis on tighter, cleaner code, less versioning and nonsense. I'm going to lean on the observer pattern and state machines to manage a lot of situational code, keeping things composed, modular, dry as possible. And so far, other than where I've had my own learning curves, the modularity has really worked. So I built a proximity sensor and a line of sight sensor and a squad commander interaction system. And when I connected them, they worked. So they're modular. It's composed. Not every character has access to all of these systems, but when I composed them and I stuck them together, they worked. When I built my health manager, I built a shielded and an unshielded version just in code. I plugged them in and they worked. So that's a good sign. So minimum features here, twin stick controller that uses a state machine. I really thought that was going to take me like a week. It took me about maybe an hour. I just used the sections of the old script that worked, and it works very well, and then I turned them into states. So when it enters that state, twin stick state, it's reading value from both the aim with your right thumb and your move with your left thumb. If it stops reading movement, it still stays inside the twin stick state, but it allows you to rotate and aim the character. If you let go of that, though, it transitions back to idle. And the moment the frame that you input something above the twin stick dead zone, it'll transition to a state. Or if you use a mouse, it'll transition to a mouse aiming state. If you're sprinting, that only works when you're in the single stick state, because I want aiming to be a little bit slower and more methodical. So it only impacts the state if you're in the right one. But I can talk about that later. It's a little bit extra. So I've got some special states. I've got gunplay now that uses projectiles rather than hit scans. The reason that this isn't checked off is because I want to work on weapon accuracy spreads. So like Bloom, I just haven't gotten there. I looked at some of the ways that I could implement that on the Unity forums and on the subreddit, and I was like, it's a little bit above my head at the moment. So it's there. I'm going to come back to it, but Radian Math in particular, I've just never done anything with it. It spooked me. Core weapon states, idle, attacking, empty, reloading, dropped. Those work. Guns with scriptable objects for information, that works. Guns with different muzzle flash and impact effects depending on the type of weapon, that works. Blah, 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 blah. So I'm kind of coming down to the end of gameplay systems, and next up is going to be making the NPCs work again. Right now they do have health, they do have shields, they do have weapons technically, but they can't fire them. And it's just because I've done no work on it. I just wanted to wait. I've gotten another 3 or 4 systems worth of practice building state machines, and I'm making progress. So I do have pickups. I need to work on the ammo one. I don't know if I'm going to get to it today. I'm still pretty tired from all the travel. Weapons, I'm like 1 or 2 steps away from finishing that too. And squad management, that's something that functions. It just doesn't work because the NPCs don't actually respond. So I'm waiting to check that off. And then I got to work on the UI again. I got to rebuild that, but I'm going to build it more clearly now that I understand more about the MVC model. So yeah, that's the project. So it doesn't look very different. You know, it still functions. So right now I am in the single stick state, and you can see it's kind of slow to get moving at first. It feels better that way. It looks a little strange when you're not used to looking at it, but it does feel better. I can sprint, although the effect of that is a little bit limited. I think he only sprints 1.25 his normal speed. But I'm in the single state. I can shoot, and I can take damage, and you'll see my shields will recharge, and the battery bar up here now will decrease as it charges the shields. And that's a gameplay component that I've built in. So this is the tester for that. Let me take a little bit more damage so it's a little bit more obvious. But keep your eye up here. When I hold E to interact, it charges the battery up. So the gameplay loop that I'm playing with is the idea that the battery bar determines how many times you can recharge your suit, and then, or your shields rather, and then after that you need to go find a battery reload, or else you're going to be dealing with a lot of fragility. So these are my NPCs. This one has shields on him. You'll see if I keep shooting, eventually he spits blood. But if we come back after I've reloaded, shields come back up until I kill him. And I don't exactly know when that happens. With flip guns. Come back to him in a second. So, whoop, reload. All right, let's see. He's dead. So this guy didn't have any shields. This guy didn't have any shields. And we're kind of at the end of what I can do, but I can dash now, and the dashing is always opposite the direction that you're looking. So if you're aiming, it's an easy way to get out. But if you're moving, it's always in the direction that you're moving unless you don't have move held. Then it'll go straight down. So it's just an easy way to get out of the world, or out of the danger rather, in the world. The other thing that's a little bit hard to tell, is the guns and the weapons are persistent on the character now. So are the equipment pieces. There's some bits and bobs, you can kind of see them on him. But they don't do anything yet. That's one of the last systems that I need to work on. So they instance when he spawns. You can see there's nothing on him right now. This is his sensor. Get out of my way, Mac battery. But when I don't know what's happening. There we go. You can see the bits and bobs right there. So they're at the moment they're just empty models. They don't do anything. So yeah, that's this rebuild of what are we calling it? We're calling it Black Dogs. So falling, the gravity works a lot better in this one too. I cannot jump if I'm already in the air because that's a special state. I can't slide if I'm in the air because that's a special state. And then if for some reason I die, there's an extra special state that takes over. Now I can't do anything except shoot because I just haven't disconnected that, but my character is now dead. But he can still pull the trigger. So yeah, that's where we're at. A lot of interfaces, a lot of learning to decouple things, a lot of observer patterns working together in tandem, learning about composition, and generally having a good time. There we go. All right. So yeah, with that said, I'm going to check out of here. I got to go back up and help the girls. I just want to get something out because it had been so long. So, all right. Have a good week. It was a little bit late for me. So, I'm Coach T. Subscribe to the channel if you like the video updates, and I will see you next week, I hope.